So much about
What would you say if I turned into all the things you love to hate? And down my way comes crashing through the rotten beams and window panes.
Hey everybody, what is going on? This is episode 24, and for those of you playing at home, this is exactly one away from 25. Hey everybody, I'm your host Dan Brosman, and we have a great episode for you today. We have a great episode every time, just about every time. Well, maybe not every time, maybe like 60-40 or 50-50. Or maybe it's more like 40-60, but there are some good episodes in there, I'm sure. Goodbye, Chicago Cubs 2016 World Series champions. Pretty much last Friday, the Cubs traded three of the main guys that they had on the team at that time. Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Anthony Rizzo. I am a huge Cubs fan. It is super sad to see them go, but, you know, I have been thinking that it's time for the Cubs to, finally burn this thing down and let's do a rebuild. I hate to say that because it part of me, it still feels like it wasn't that long ago when we won the World Series, but over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, it's really felt like things haven't been working. So, sometimes it's just time for it to end. And, it's time. It was time to end. I'm not looking forward to a rebuild. But at least the next couple years, we know that what to expect, that it's not going to be all that great. But I'd just like to say bye to, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and especially Anthony Rizzo. Anthony, you were a great ambassador of the Chicago Cubs, and he's also a great ambassador of the sport. Just a super great guy. Those are the kind of guys I want on my team and representing my team going forward. I cannot stand professional athletes that act like complete jackasses. Anthony was not that guy. He was the best of the best, and I love you, man. Good luck in New York. I wish you all the best. So what else are we going to talk about here? Well, believe it or not, I just picked up an Xbox One X, and I am so excited about it. I know I'm late to the party with this thing, and seeing as though that I'm not even sure that I'm going to buy any of the current generation consoles. So I really started looking in earnest for the last generation, namely maybe a PS4 or an Xbox One. And finally I found, I found two, both of them. They're not hard to find around here necessarily, but it's the condition is really what I was going for. I don't want to buy something that's banged up, and even the banged up ones are still going for quite a little bit. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to spend that money, if I'm going to, give up some cheddar like that, I want something that's in good condition, man. I like my stuff pristine, And not only the way it looks, but if the way it looks usually, has something to do with how it was taken care of. I'm not going to spend $300 on something that looks beat up, and it's like, well, how long is this thing going to last? That's just me. So here's the story about how I actually came across it. I wasn't even looking for it that day. So in our area where I live, and I've talked about these stores before, we have stores that are called Disc Replay, and they're resale shops for, just about everything as far as physical media goes, records, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, and then, of course, video games, which is awesome. And not all of the stores in this area are owned by the same people. So some of them are a little bit different than the others. Like the one here in Joliet is vastly different than, well, a lot of the other ones. Actually, it's the most different. And I keep track of a lot of these places on Facebook because, they'll get something in and, throw it up on Facebook and saying, hey, this is what we got. And then, because I don't get out that much, to drive, especially the ones up north, because it takes a little bit to get up there. So I'm just not going to pop in every, here and there. Sometimes it's, maybe once or twice a year for the ones up north. Anywho, so I have been on this crusade, I want to say, for about the last 6 months. I wanted to start collecting for the Sega Dreamcast. And I've always been kind of like in the back of my mind, like, man, you really need to get a Dreamcast. Because I've never had it. And as much as a Sega fan as I am, I don't know why I've never gotten it. So anyway, 6 months, the last 6 months, been looking, and, again, it comes down to two things. The quality, the condition, and then the price, because people just on Marketplace and eBay are asking stupid prices for these things. When I know there's that, number one, that's not what they're valued as. Anything over, I'd say $80 for a Dreamcast that comes with, a controller should not be more than, I would say, $80. And usually around here, average price is probably about $75. But if you go online, and especially Marketplace, people are trying to sell it for $100 plus, and it's like, no, dude. Anywho, so it's at work, go on break, get on the Facebook, and hey, the place up north, not the one local, but a little bit further north, like a couple towns north of here, they had a Dreamcast that I just got in. It looked like it was in really good shape. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to try and get up there tomorrow on my day off and get it. Because usually once they put that up there, stuff like that goes fast. And that's always been my problem, getting up there fast enough to snag it. So I called the next day because I wanted to make sure they had it before I drove up there. And they said, yes, we have it, but it's missing the side, which there's like a side panel that pops off for like an expansion port. I'm not really sure what you plugged into it, because like I said, I'm new to the Dreamcast. But I was like, I don't know. I mean, they're selling it for $75 with a controller, but it's missing the side piece. I don't really, I want everything. Well, I'm like, you know what? Let's just go up there, because anytime I get to go up to another, store to look at games and video game systems, I don't need too much of an excuse. So we go, me and my son, and we get up there, and I'm looking at this thing, and yeah, I mean, it was in good shape, except for missing that side panel, and it was like a big chunk. It's like on the bottom and the back. I want to say it was for some sort of a modem, maybe. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, not so much. But I'm like, well, let's see what else they have. Well, there, in the case, along with it, were two other consoles that I was interested in pristine condition. And one was the Xbox One X, and the other was a PlayStation Pro. So now I'm like, well, wasn't planning on spending all this money today, but, if I walk out of here, I'm not going to find these. I'm still going to be looking for these things, 6 months down the road. Might as well pick one up today, but now it's like, which one do you get? Because I do like PlayStation, but then, everybody that I know that has the Xbox One really likes it. And I heard that like the PlayStation 4 Pro can be loud, but like the Xbox One X is super compact and quiet. So basically I chose the Xbox One, which as of right now I'm not regretting, and I'm loving this thing. I mean, all one games that I played on it, because I only got one game with it, and that was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which, you know, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I seen like online some people are just, you know, like, well, this ain't that great. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even read past the headlines. You know, everyone's got different opinions, but I'm loving it. I don't know what anybody's talking about. Anywho, so as I'm shopping the store for other things, I'm on my phone on Facebook Marketplace with another gentleman who is actually selling a Dreamcast for $75. Well, by the time I had gotten through to him, somebody was already interested, and he was waiting to hear back from that guy. So I'm like, well, you know what? Whatever. I'm still, at that point, I'd already made up in my mind that, you know, one of these days, I'm definitely going to get one. So they had the Hyperkin HDMI Dreamcast cables there. And by the way, you know, I know it doesn't do any upscaling, but those things really do work well. I mean, from the little bit that I've seen so far. Anywho, I'm like, well, I'm going to buy this because I know I'm going to get one, and I'm probably going to get it pretty soon. So we get up there, and the lady's really nice, and she's ringing me up, and I said, yeah, can you throw those cables for the Dreamcast on here? I said, well, you know, that's originally why I came up here was, you know, to get a Dreamcast, and, you know, unfortunately when you got in there, it was missing a big chunk out of the side, and she's like, oh, we've got two more in the back. I'm like, what? She's like, do you want to see them? I'm like, yeah, I want to see them. So now I'm thinking, shit, because I was already kind of feeling bad about coming up there for $75, dropping it on another system, but now I'm spending even more on an Xbox One X, and am I going to spend even more now? And it's like, oh my God. But I'm like, I'm going to look. Of course I'm going to look. Y'all know, you would look too. So anyway, she brings two of them out. And I didn't even need to look at the second one, because the first one was just perfect. Just clean and not a scuff mark on this thing. I mean, they probably played this thing for like a month and then put it in the box and put it in the back in the closet. And she's like, so what are you thinking? And I told her, I looked at her, I said, I'm thinking I'm going to take this and ring me out as fast as you can, because I've already got buyer's remorse. I got to get out of here. And I don't even have a game. They had like 2 games up there, and it was nothing that I wanted. So I'm like, well, I'm going to have to get out of here and get on the old eBays and find myself something even to check this out, to make sure it works. No problem. They give you a month, you know, to bring it back if something doesn't work. Now, if you walk out the door and drop it on the ground, I think you're a little SOL. So I get out of there with an Xbox One X with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I'm sorry, and a mint Sega Dreamcast. And I gotta tell you, it was the biggest mix of buyer's remorse and like glee I've ever had. Like all the way home, there was patches of like, oh my God. I'm like, that was so much money. I'm like, I totally wasn't wanting to spend that money. And the other part of me was like, hey guys, we got a Sega Dreamcast and an Xbox One. Woo! I'm just excited just thinking about it. And that was last week. So anyway, that was my little adventure. What games did I get? I got Crazy Taxi, and there was one other game I got for the Dreamcast. It just came today. I can't think of it. It's a space shooter. Anyway, I just wanted a couple things to try the system out. Damn, man. So on the flip side here, I didn't realize like how pricey the games for the Dreamcast have gotten. Holy cow. And I know I was looking on eBay, which, you're not getting any deals on eBay. I realize that, but just the sense of what the prices were off of eBay, I was like, is this for real? I'm like, oh no. But it is what it is. I'm glad I got one. I'm using the it works great. I'm using the HDMI cable from Hyperkin, and I was really kind of worried about how it was going to look on there. It looks fine. It really does. I'm a big guy with how my games look, especially my older games. And, I don't want them too soft. I don't want them too muddied up. But, for what it is, it does the job really well. I don't know how much of a difference between, like, the Hyperkin cables and the Pound cables are. But it'd be interesting to see. I mean, the only way I would get it is if I was going to do, like, a video review. But I think that's already been done to death, so I can't imagine anybody being interested in what I have to say about it at this point. But yeah, the last thing I needed was another 2 systems. But with that being said, I came to the realization that I'm pretty close to having all the systems that I want in my collection. I really can't think of anything else. I mean, maybe further on down the road, I'll get a PlayStation 4 for whatever. But I mean, I'm just looking around at my collection. And the other day I was like, I don't know what I want in my collection now as far as hardware goes. Because I have a lot of things. And there is something coming out here pretty soon that I'm going to talk to you about here in a minute. That's going to kind of hopefully put the nail in the coffin with me buying more hardware here for a good long time, which is great because now I can save some money, which is always nice. So, hey, thanks to the people at the Naperville Disc Replay Shop. And if you're ever in the Chicagoland area, especially a little bit south of Chicago, and you run across a disc replay, it's not a bad place to go in and get games. And now they don't have huge selection of games, but they have vinyl and they have, like I said, movies. I don't know if they do VHS. I think they might a little bit. And then the one in Naperville, they have a lot of like wall art and just everything, like third-party controllers and, all the stuff from Hyperkin and Retrobit and all that stuff. Just super nice. And actually, there is one in a town south of me in Champaign-Urbana, which is where the University of Illinois is. And that one is nice, too. And, man, I've only been in there maybe twice, 2 or 3 times, but every time I've gone in, they have really nice deals in there, and they run really nice sales. Now, maybe that was just, the 2 or 3 times I had been in there, but it was nice. And my actual in-laws live down there, so when we go down, I try to stop. Sometimes it's like, getting away because it's family time is a little hard, but, sometimes you sneak out, Anyway, so yeah, yay for me. When I pick up more games, I'll let you know. But that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, that's a really good game, guys. So if you've been looking at that or kind of interested or kind of, signed off as that being you're not going to get it because of what other people have said, don't listen to them. That's the one thing, with movies and games, everyone's got an opinion. And a lot of times it's not the same as yours. So go at least try it, now you can buy it used. I think I bought mine for like, $12 or something. So anyway. So there's been some interesting updates on the Polymega website. Yes, folks, I am a backer of the Polymega. I may or may not have talked about it before on this, podcast. Maybe. So last week, a announcement came out. An announcement that announced that there will be another announcement on August the 2nd. So now we're, of course, obviously past August 2nd. And you're saying to yourself, well, Dan, what was that announcement? I'm glad you asked. So what the announcement was is the release date. And all of the people that pre-ordered Polymega were like, holy shit, is this actually going to happen? We're actually getting a release date. Well, to be fair, this is like, the fourth release date? But... so it's coming out. They announced that on September 12th, I believe, it will be shipping out with so there was, I don't know how many people are going to get it at first, because there were two or three different pre-orders there. So I had originally pre-ordered the first go around, but then, I canceled it, and then I ordered a little bit later on, but it was still pretty early on, I think. What I'm saying is, I think I'm going to get mine before the end of the year. Hopefully sometime between September and October. I think that's where I'm at. And then they said that, people that ordered late or did the pre-orders late or ordered it late will either get it in the first or second quarter of 2022. And so, I know right now I could be rolling my eyes going, well, last year in November, the week before they were supposed to ship it out, I even got a email from them saying, hey, coming out soon. And then, they canceled it and pushed it back. But this feels different. I don't think that this is going to happen with this, because they haven't been saying anything. I mean, I think I've talked about this pretty well in the past. So the fact that they haven't said anything until now would suggest that, hey, this is really going to happen. And from what I've heard from reports is that they actually have a lot of these machines already in the warehouse, wherever they're keeping their stock. So they're actually, receiving these machines, and they have a pile of them. So, which is good. There's a lot you could say about this and about Polymega. Not the company, but the machine. I know a lot of criticisms now as well. It took so long that, is it relevant? And, because we have ways of playing our old games, on HDMI 1,000 different ways now, where maybe is when, they were coming out originally as retro blocks and then Polymega later on, that back then there wasn't a lot of options. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But one thing I hadn't realized until I heard this just a minute ago before I got on here, is how much they're charging for this machine now. When I had gotten it, we did not get the jacked up prices. It was, and actually we got, the lower price for pre-ordering early. And they had said, well, this is what it's going to be when we sell it straight out, but this is what you're going to pay, being, a early backer here. And they're not even anywhere around where they were going to be for originally for just selling it straight out. And I want to say, so the thing with the Polymega is that the main system is just the disk system, and then for everything else, the cartridge based systems, you have to buy those modulars yourself. And the modulars themselves for the cartridges are, I think they're running like $80 right now. Okay. And I don't know that has got me kind of saying that's expensive. It is expensive. But then the base unit, I didn't realize this, and I think this is what's going to end up ultimately killing this system, is they're selling the base unit, which is disc-based games, for $449. That's, I hate to say it, but God, guys, that is a lot of moolah there. And look, I know that we don't, at this time right now, have any, clone console emulator machines that can do disc-based games, physical media. But geez, guys, that is, $449, so $450, and that's without tax, and that's without shipping. So, you could be looking, just under $5 here. Really, in the end. And if that's what you're going to charge going forward after the launch, I just don't know who's going to buy this machine, guys. And that really hurts me, because as much as I've talked about Polymega and how I'm not happy with how things have gone with this, and a lot of that's just me being disappointed at stuff that they didn't have control over, but I got to vent to somewhere. But there's been a huge part of me that still's like, they're going to come out with this thing, and then they're going to be able to expand on it, and this and that, and get other, maybe 3DO support and this and that. But I got to tell you, I don't know where they go after, all the pre-orders are filled. I just don't. $450, and then let's say you get one module, that's $80. So that's, you're over 500, lickety split. Guys, and even if this had come out maybe 3 years ago and been more relevant, that $550 or that $450 is still, for the base unit, is still hell of expensive. You want to talk about a hard pill to swallow, guys? Yeah, that's it. And yeah, so $79 for the modules. And I can't remember exactly what I paid for the whole thing, but I know it wasn't anywhere near that, because that's definitely a hell no. Because I bought the base unit, and you got to get the base unit. And then I got the TurboGrafx module. And the thing with that is, now Analog's going to come out with their version whenever, their Turbo Duo, where you play the CD, TurboGrafx CD games and the Hue cards. And if I can get my hands on one of those, now the system is really starting to look irrelevant in my collection. But it almost, with me though, it almost feels like at the end of the day, like this is just going to be like a showcase piece now. It'd be like, hey, I got the Polymega. How many people out there are going to be able to say they have this machine? And that's going to be outside of like the gaming community. Not a lot of people are going to know about this thing. People are going to come into my game room and be like, oh, the Atari 2600, I had that growing up. Or what is this? And I'd be like, oh, well, that's the Polymega. They're going to be like, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you. So, I guess it is what it is. I am excited to get it. I really hope that somehow they keep going on with this and figure out like how to bring the price down and like add more support for other systems on this thing. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. In my gut right now, if I had to bet, if someone said, Dan, $1,000 to get this right, would you say that after it launches that there's going to be support for other systems and they're going to keep going? I gotta put my money on no. And I think a lot of people would too. I mean, if I'm not betting with my heart and my hopes, if I'm just trying to bet with my head, I would have to say it all points towards no. But we will see. I am so excited to get this thing. I can't tell you, and I hope it's good. I mean, at least I know that people have had some out there, reviewers or whatever, and, there are problems, but, all in all, it's supposed to be a really nice machine. So, hey, it is what it is, and I'm looking forward to it. So, yay, Polymega, coming out, putting it down. Thank you, guys. Along with me actually getting down, actually doing some gaming. I have a gaming YouTube channel. I have a gaming podcast. And how much gaming do I actually do? Well, sometimes it feels like none. Because by the time I get done with work, and especially during the summertime, I'm so busy here. Let's wait till wintertime and get locked in. Now I do my gaming. But I finally been like, look, man, cut the grass tomorrow. Let's do some gaming. And it's been so nice. Like I said, I've been doing the Jedi Fallen Order, which has been really good. But you know what else I picked up? And I've looked at this thing before, and I never realized exactly what it was. I don't know why, but I picked up Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. And I don't know how I just never picked this game up before, because it is great. I'm a huge side-scrolling platformer guy. I'm still just old school in my heart. And I know this came out on the Wii U. And then, obviously, U Deluxe. And then they ported it over to the Switch. I never realized that it was an actual, kind of an old school Mario game, just with the better graphics, until it popped up in a review on YouTube. And I watched this. I'm like, why don't I have this game? So I ended up actually picking one up the other day. And, man, I have been on this thing, nonstop. I mean, when I'm not playing, my new systems, which has been all the time, too. And it's been great. But, Super Mario Brothers Wii U is just scratches that itch that all of us old school guys have when it comes to these new games. And don't get me wrong, I love the 3D games. Super Mario Brothers Odyssey and, all the Super Mario Brothers 3D games. I like them. I love them. They're good games. But, I'm just, when I pop this in, and it's just that side-scrolling platforming action, it's like, I love this. I'm like, why didn't I buy this earlier? I mean, all the games that I buy on the Switch today anyway are basically indie games that are side-scrolling platformers. So why didn't I have this game? I don't know. Probably just busy, with everything else and never really took a second glance at it. But yeah, great game. So that being said, this is going to kind of roll into something that I've been kind of dealing with in my mind for, probably about the last year. Now, I said that, I didn't want any other systems, or I wasn't looking to get any other systems in my collection. But that's not 100% true, because there is one that I'm considering, but I don't really know if I really need it. Well, like I really need any of these other ones. But I've been looking at getting a Wii U, because it looks like that kind of has the feeling like the Dreamcast got it. Wasn't really popular necessarily when it came out and didn't last that long, but nowadays everyone's into it. Same thing with the Wii U. The more time goes along, the more collectors and hobbyists are really finding a love for the Wii U. But here's my thing with the Wii U is is that with the Dreamcast, yeah, there were some of those games you could find elsewhere, but it wasn't like there was another Sega system that came out right after it, and in a lot of those games that was on the Dreamcast just got a port to whatever the next system was, so people could still play them. Because that's what happened with the Wii U. It had such a short lifespan where a lot of those games they just ported and put them on the Switch. So my question is, do I need a Wii U when I have a lot of the games that are on the Wii U already on my Switch? I don't know. Because part of me is like, well, just pick one up now, before they get super expensive. That maybe in the future when you decide that maybe you do want to collect for it, you'll have one and it won't be like this huge effort to get one. But the other hand, too, is like, well, and then if I don't want it, I can just sell it and maybe make a little bit of a profit off of it. That way at least, hey, now you have one and you don't have to worry about it later. I don't know. That's the only other system that I'm kind of going back and forth on in my mind. That, hey, maybe you buy one. But I will say, now that I have the Xbox One X and the Sega Dreamcast, it might not be too long before that voice in the back of my head's like, hey man, it'd be nice. How about you pick yourself up a Wii U, huh? And I'm like, I don't know, because that voice is already kind of there. It's already kind of there. I don't know, but it's kind of gone away too here in the last month, especially after I got these two systems. I don't know. Every so often, I try to reevaluate, like, what am I doing in my collection? How am I collecting? Am I playing these games? What do I really need? And what would I enjoy having? Not just to have on a shelf, but to actually play. And would my son like to play it? Because a lot of times when things start getting expensive, it's like, look, I'm not buying this thing just to have it. I mean, I got to actually want to play this thing. And even then, sometimes with the prices of things, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And usually I start thinking about this at the beginning, towards the beginning or the end of a year, going forward to next year. Because, a lot of times I like to kind of think forward, be like, hey, this is what my goals are as far as gaming goes. As far as collecting, what are some of my things? Like the Dreamcast was definitely something on my mind going into this year. And probably a little bit with the Wii U. And definitely one of the newer systems. And I've done a lot of that, plus more. A little bit more than I want to. And it really got me thinking early this year, because when I picked up the Dreamcast and I seen how expensive the games are, it kind of took me back a little bit, and I started thinking, I'm like, well, is this a time when I should start getting interested in maybe something like an optical drive emulator? And if you guys don't know what that is, let me give you a little layman's brief overview here, okay? Basically, there are several disc systems, and I think the main ones are Dreamcast, the Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo GameCube. And what happens is there are mods that you can get to where you actually take out the disc drive. So you do not have the hardware in there to play discs. So no physical media. But the motherboard remains in there. And then you plug this other board in there. And in that board has like an SD card where you load ROMs onto it for, whatever system you're doing it for. So like with the Dreamcast, obviously do Dreamcast games and so on and so forth. But it takes the physical media out of it and makes it digital. And I know what you guys are saying, but Dan, you just talked about how much you hate digital. I know, motherfuckers, but guess what? Shit's getting expensive out here. And, I'm not dropping a whole bunch of coin on these games. I'm just not. I like having the systems. I like having the physical media. But, at a certain point, you're just like, there's other things in life that are going on. And it doesn't include me dropping buku bucks on these games, if you know what I mean. So, I don't know. I'm really, really been thinking about it. And the one thing I am started to think about is starting to pick up some EverDrives. For my different systems, namely my Nintendo 64. And on top of that, I am really, really considering getting that new HD mod for the Nintendo 64. And then getting the EverDrive for it. Excuse me. And that being like, and maybe instead of like searching for games this next year and doing that, maybe just little bit by little bit over the next handful of years, like switching over to stuff that, improve my systems maybe and make it easier for me to actually, be able to play a lot of these games. And I have a lot of Nintendo 64 games. But I've always been interested in, the Ultra HDMI. But it was always really expensive, and it was really, really hard to get your hands on. And now with this, I want to say, was it the FX Pixel or something like that? I think it's the N64 Digital, then the new HDMI mod that just came out. And it being really, I guess it's available a lot more than the Ultra HDMI was. It really has me thinking. And is this something that I really want to do going forward? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't play my N64 that much. And it's partly because it doesn't look good on my new TV. Even through like my Retro Tink, it's 2X, it's still not that great. So I'm really thinking about like this year, this next coming year, like the big thing for me is to get that HDMI mod on the 64 and to get an EverDrive for that. And I also want to start thinking about getting EverDrive for maybe, my Nintendo, my Sega Genesis. Because that way I do want to still play through the systems themselves. And I am playing on clones, but it wouldn't be emulation in the way that like on a Raspberry Pi, because with these at least it would be through like an analog console, or like I have the retro AVS for Nintendo, and those consoles are absolutely dynamite. But it really has me thinking. Because I already have a Raspberry Pi set up, and I still work on it from now and again. It's my old 3B Plus, and that's actually something that I have in my arcade cabinet, and I love those things. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it's really got me thinking about where I'm going to go as far as collecting, which direction I'm going to go. And to be honest with you, if I really think about it, I've probably been thinking about this a lot longer than I realized, because I know going into this year, I was really looking hard into the Mister, which is, a Raspberry Pi on steroids. It's an actual FPGA system, where you have, it supports like, oh my God, so many retro systems. And then you just have to put your ROMs in there. But there, it's FPGA. So, it's like, it's still, it's hardware emulation. But, you're getting like, as close as you can to the real thing. And it looks wonderful and the sound's great. And I'm really thinking about that, because that, I think, altogether runs around $300. So I don't know which way I'm going to go. Because with that, it goes only up to like, I want to say 16-bit systems. And that's how powerful it is. It's just, anything above 16-bit, I think you're kind of not going to get. I think it does Sega CD too. It's able to do Sega CD. But like a lot of the disc-based systems, anything 32 or 64-bit after that, after the 16-bit, it's just not going to do. And that being the Mister I'm talking about. I don't know. None of this stuff is cheap though. But it's cheaper in the long run as far as collecting goes. And technically that wouldn't be collecting, but I'm not going to pick up all the games that I want in my collection to play. I know that. So do I want to just stick with the Raspberry Pi and say that's good enough, save myself some bucks, or do I want to start doing stuff like the Mister or EverDrives or optical drive emulators? I don't know, because it would be different if I could do a lot of this myself, like the optical drive emulators. And some of them are easy to put together, but some of them are not. And the same thing with the HDMI mod for the 64. That is not easy. And they've always said, hey, this isn't for beginners. You got to know what you're doing, Jack. But, stuff like the Raspberry Pi, I've done that myself. I've seen people put the Mister together, and I know for a fact that I could do that myself. So, what am I going to do? I don't know. But if you guys have any suggestions on maybe like what you guys do and have, seen good results in what you got in your setup, as far as maybe like, with the Mister, or, well, I know the Raspberry Pi, but like, EverDrives, let me know. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. So, I'm a kid of the 80s. Yes, I am radical. I'm awesome. Or maybe that was the 90s. Was radical the 90s? I don't know. Either which way, I love the 80s. I am full on nostalgic for anything 80s. So when I seen a trailer for the new He-Man show coming out, I was like, yes! I'm like, this is going to be awesome. It actually looked awesome. And, yeah. And with that also comes the possibility of it not being so awesome. And then, of course, my mistake was I went, online to get some information about it, and everybody just shitting on it. And it wasn't even out yet. Just, God bless the internet, man, because if there is one thing you can count on, is this, it could be the best thing out there, and people will shit on it, hands down. Just, good Lord, guys. Everybody needs to take a chill pill. So, it's out now. And I think it was like 5 episodes. And then I think there's going to be another 5. Because I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it. It definitely didn't end with the first 5. So you could tell there's going to be another 5. Or supposedly, that, from what I've heard, that's the deal. And, the actual name of this, it's not He-Man. It's called Masters of the Universe Revelation. He-Man is in some of it. And, I don't know. It is, I like it and I don't like it. There are parts of it that I do like and parts that I don't. So, I guess, I'm going to try and do pros and cons here. But I'm probably going to mix them up at some point, just because, I'll just be remembering. I should have wrote this shit down. If I was professional and prepared for this, I would have wrote this down, but I didn't. So here we go. So let's go to cons. And then we'll end on a good note with the pros. The cons are, I don't necessarily care for the fact that He-Man hasn't been in a lot of it, at least for these first 5 episodes. You know, him and Skeletor, for all intents and purposes, die or get blown up, and then it kind of becomes Teela's story, which, to be honest with you, hasn't been bad. I've enjoyed the fact, I've actually have enjoyed it going forward with Teela. And then, you know, of course, it has, you know, Man-at-Arms and Orko and all this, but, you know, I mean, some of these actors or these characters are dying, and some of them are not dying. But the story, it's been okay. It just, I don't know. It's the problem that I have with this He-Man is kind of a problem that I have with other things that I'm a fan of, other franchises like Star Trek and Star Wars. And then, you know, like He-Man. The problem being is sometimes it may look like, you know, that franchise. It may sound like that franchise, but the feel of it is not there. You know, like all this new Star Trek stuff. It don't feel anything like Star Trek. Nothing. You may say it is, and you may have logos, and you may have ships designed that look like it. But if you were a fan of the original and then the Next Generation, and then you went to this, it's not Star Trek. And I'm including those new Chris Pine shit movies too. Okay, I'm sorry, they're shit. Anywho, and then the same thing with Star Wars. You know, like but Star Wars is I'm just talking purely the saga movies and that boring ass Han Solo movie. Doesn't quite feel like Star Wars. It may look like it. You may have some of the same characters in there, but that doesn't mean that what you're making is an actual Star Wars movie. And that's what I kind of feel with this Masters of the Universe show. You got the characters in there. It may look like them, but it just doesn't have that feeling. And I know a lot of people, you know, I've seen, you know, different videos about people's takes on this or whatever. But the one interesting thing that I want to say, and again, this is my opinion, like how what they're saying is theirs. But the one thing I've heard say maybe 2 or 3 times that just I disagree with so much is that, you know, hey, those old He-Man cartoons weren't all that great. And, you know, the people that grew up with that, they're remembering more of the toys than they are the cartoons. And no. Let me tell you something. I grew up with that stuff. I can remember being in kindergarten and my parents, you know, like, hey, you know, if you learn how to do this, you know, and you pass at school, you're going to get like Stratos or whatever. And look, I had the toys. I had the show. The show was the shit. I got all the show episodes on DVD sitting right behind me. I loved He-Man. And you know what? It holds up today. And a lot of people are like, it doesn't hold up today. It holds up today. It holds up today. People that look at this and were like, oh, I loved it back then. And I tried going back and looking at it. I just couldn't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. Because, first of all, you can't judge, you know, stuff that was 30 years ago with today's standards and what we get today. Because it's just nowhere close. But there was a feeling to those cartoons, okay? There was a feel to it. There was an ebb and flow to those cartoons and that show that was awesome. And that's what you miss today. Because those shows didn't take themselves seriously. Not really. You know, it was kind of hokey pokey. And there was a lot of levity in there in those shows. Because it was a kid's show. So now they come out with this new stuff. This He-Man Revelation. Or Masters of the Universe Revelation, sorry. And it's lacking that levity. It's so serious. And, even with the stuff with Orko, yeah, he's still messing stuff up. But even with Orko's more of a serious character in this, too. And Orko back in the day was nothing but a goofball. And it just doesn't have that ebb and flow. And so the problem I have when people do stuff like this is, did you really want to do this because you have a love for He-Man and you wanted to try and bring it in an updated form here? Or are you just looking to make something, slap that franchise name on it so you already have a fan base, viewership, so you don't have to build one on your own? And I don't know what the case is, because the guy who made this is Kevin Smith. And I think we all know who Kevin Smith is. Silent Bob from, the Mallrats. Well, and then they had their own movies, and then Clerks. And, he's made other movies. And with Kevin Smith, it's a love-hate relationship with him. Because a lot of times I do like him, but there's sometimes I really just disagree with what he does. So I don't know where it lands with him. And plus, he in the past has admitted that he has no love for He-Man. So it kind of makes me wonder if he really, really wanted to make an honest to God, true to He-Man thing here. Okay? Because let me tell you something, folks. If you are somebody who is a power that be, that a producer or director or whatever, and you're like, hey, I remember this old show or whatever, and what we should do is reboot it and modernize it. You don't need to. Come up with something on your own. You don't need to modernize these franchises from back in the day, okay? Leave them alone. Leave them alone, because you know what you guys are doing? You guys are fucking them all up. All of them. And my opinion, it's my opinion, and I know maybe, people will disagree with me. I'm sure they will. But that's just the way I feel, man. Just leave it alone. Go and get... And the thing of it is, like some of the stuff with Star Wars and some of the stuff with, Star Trek. If it wasn't named Star Trek or Star Wars and it didn't have all the characters or whatever else in it, but it had the storyline, it might be good. But if it was something else, but because you run the risk of messing up everything that came before, the storyline, the character arcs, everything. Leave it alone, mofos. Okay, so I guess that was the negatives. So let's do the positives. I like the animation, even though it can be a little choppy. I do like the animation. I think it's done well. I do enjoy the animation. In the storyline, I don't think the storyline's all that bad. Like I said, it is serious. And I think if you would have just put a little bit more levity in there, or any at all, it would have been nice. But the one thing I do not like is the voice acting. And it just, especially like Cringer and Battle Cat, I don't like that. King Randor is horrible. And, I thought it might be cool at first, but they have Mark Hamill doing the voice for Skeletor, and I hate it. And I hate it not because it's bad. It's not bad. It's really good. But you know whose voice it is? It's Joker. It's Joker's voice. So the whole time I'm like, He-Man's fighting Joker. Why does Skeletor sound like Joker? Because it's Mark Hamill. And nothing against you, Mark. I know you do a lot of voiceovers, and that voice is great. But it takes me out of it because I know that voice all too well. And it's not 100% Joker, but I'd say it's a good 75%. It's enough to where you're like, oh, that's Joker. It's like, no, that's okay. So we're going to wait because there is another 5 episodes to come, and I want to see how this all wraps up. You never know. Maybe I'll get back on here and be like, you know what, this thing was pretty awesome. But as of right now, I'm middle of the road. I'm middle of the road. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. So and I'm surprised that as much heat as this has gotten, because especially with me, I like to pile on sometime and do a rock bottom right through the middle of whatever I'm talking about. But I'm trying to keep more of an open mind, and with this not being 100% done, like we only got the first 5 episodes, it's kind of hard to get my full thoughts on it. But hopefully, here sometime soon, it'll be coming out. I don't know when they're gonna drop these other episodes. In fact, they might have already dropped them now. I haven't checked in like probably a couple days. So anyway. Alright guys, well that's where we're going to end it for this episode. There's so much gaming out there to do now. I'm so happy. I'm one of these people that's like, I can't wait for the wintertime. And I've gotten a lot of slack over that over the last 2 weeks. But at a certain point in the summer, I'm tired of working out in the yard. I'm tired of sweating. And I'm tired of not gaming. Because as soon as the weather gets bad and I'm stuck inside, guess what? Hella gaming going on in here. Alright guys, well thanks for hanging out with me. It's been a real pleasure talking to you guys. And until I see you guys next time, I love all you guys. Good night and goodbye.
Oh, well, he's very popular, Ed. The sportos, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.